7:01. I'd like to call the January 16th, 2025 school budget public hearing to order. If everyone could please rise for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. As tonight is a public hearing, and in accordance with RSA 3251, governing body or budget committee, if there is one, shall hold at least one public hearing on each budget not later than 25 days before each annual or special meeting, public notice of which shall begin at least 7 days in advance, and after the conclusion of public testimony shall finalize the budget to be submitted to the legislative body. So that is what we are here to do tonight, to summarize the budgets, present them, listen to public comment, and then afterwards finalize the budgets. I'd like to lay out some ground rules for the public comment session prior to starting the meeting. We're going to ask that there is a 5-minute time limit to everybody's comments. And then after the 5 minutes, if you could please be seated, and if there are any others that would like to come up and comment, we will give them a chance. Once that everybody else has had a chance to speak, then if you have already spoken, you are welcome to come back up. But we would also like to remind folks that this isn't to be excessively repetitive, and we want to try to stay on task. So we'd like to limit commentary to the subject at hand, which tonight is the school budget. And we'd also like to note that the board is happy to answer specific questions, but the intent of a public hearing is to minimize any sort of debate and to really allow the free and open commentary by the public. So with that, if I could ask the school board and
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, just point of order. Should we introduce ourselves?
oh yeah, I got way ahead of myself. I'll finish my statement and then we'll do a roll call. Thank you. After roll call, if the superintendent's office and school board could present the budget, speak to the default budget, the proposed budget, and then the warrant articles. And then if we can ask you to sit in the audience then, and then we'll allow the public to come up and provide their commentary. And then we'll close the public comment and finalize recommendations for the budget. So with that,
Wait,
since,
can we switch the microphone now?
oh yeah, could you slide that down in front of them? Thank you, you doubled up for some reason. And now that the microphone's down there, Mr. Kelly, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Robert Kelly.
Karen Quinn.
Steve Welch.
Donna Danis.
Owen Friend Gray.
Michael Kelly.
Jeffrey Morrison.
Sandra Jones.
Charlotte Fife.
Danielle Roy.
Bill Roy with the school SAU office.
Susan Levinson, School Board.
Ronna Hasbrook, Superintendent.
Thank you, everybody. So if you could start with default and then proposed.
One thing I'd like to highlight first, so today, we had a question, and it was a very good question. It was about one of the warrant articles, and there was something that was missed in default and in proposed budget. It was the cost for the adequate education for high school students for Dover. Since the Dover tuition is on a warrant article, the warrant is for if we want to go into agreement with Dover to have our students go there, not for the cost of education. So after talking with legal, the cost for education is actually for default and for the proposed budget. So that is a change, and it's a noted change. That's why your packet today is a little thicker than it probably should have been. That's the reason why. So it's going to be reflected there as well.
And it's reflected in all the final numbers that are presented?
Yes, everything that you got today is all updated. The only thing I wish I did, and I do apologize, on the front page, it says January 13th. It should say January 16th.
Can I just clarify one point?
Sure.
You want us to just go through at function level and just
Yes, please.
present the budget and then
Yes.
make sure we present the default budget bottom line?
Yeah, I would think a bottom line and highlight, I don't think we need to go through the function level on the default budget necessarily. But function level and just make sure I understand it, that's the summary sort of section line. That's
Yes,
correct.
by each section.
Yes, please, if you could, that would be great.
And then do
Thank
you wish to have comment at the end of each section about what it reflects, or,
If there's something that you'd like to provide or you think helps for clarification purposes, you're welcome to. But I think it's just sort of present what's there, and then we'll open the public comment period for, or the public hearings to allow for the public comment.
All right, so,
revenues and expenses?
all right, so the first section we're gonna go through is the proposed budget. So that would be your, I guess technically your third page, because the second page is just the changes since the last meeting. So it would read at the top, fiscal year 25-26, proposed budget revenue draft.
This is the single pager.
This is the single page, yes, the single page double-sided.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you for asking. All right, so I guess really, we're gonna look at the current appropriations, because that is one of the items that have changed since the last meeting, is the change for the tuition cost. And that cost is now reflected with the current appropriations. None of the other revenue sections have changed. So if we go down, so the general fund, the total proposed budget is $17,242.73.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Yes.
What are you looking at?
The proposed budget revenue page?
The revenue page?
Yes.
Single pager.
This-
Page one.
I do think, though, for the
The
hearing, we
page
have to
1,
say what the revenue is that we're anticipating. Which,
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. If there is something I'm missing procedurally, please
no, that's
correct me.
okay, nope, I think we just have to, we've got in here the adequate education grant and the local education grant, but I do think we just have to run down the revenue, the revenue
Sure.
items.
All right, so we already covered the appropriations. I don't think I actually said the amount, so I'll say that. Current appropriations is $13,238,353.59. Tuition from parents is $30,000. Interest income is $15,000. Rental income is $1,000. It's really hard to predict unanticipated revenue, so that is blank. Indirect cost revenue, that is $3,500. Adequate education grant is $2,166,086.14. Local education tax is $1,433,303. Special education aid, we have it as $100,000 right now. And it's, right now it's gonna stay like that. I don't know why I said right now, I'm sorry. Medicaid, $30,000. And then we have no transfers for capital reserve accounts. So those lines are just zero. It's just reflecting because there was numbers that we used previous year. So that brings us to the total. That's all for the general fund budget, which is $17,242.73. And continuing down is the food service revenue. There's an appropriation in that line, in that fund, excuse me, for $118,640.42. Lunch sales, that's the sales that we do for the revenue at the school for food. It's $80,000. It can't anticipate any kind of donation, so right now that is zero as also. Vending machine sales, we're expecting around $2,000. State child nutrition, $2,100. Federal child nutrition, $27,000. And the total for food service is $229,740.42. So both of those together comes to a grand total of $17,246,983.15. Excuse me. All right. The next section at the top will read 25, 26 proposed budget expenses draft. It is the staple packet, yep, it's
Packet.
about 30.
Call it 38 pages.
Yeah,
The next page one.
38 pages, yes. All right, so this section, the expenses are broken up by function codes. There's 1,100, 1,200, so on, and we'll just go through the totals and then note any kind of specific changes or any highlights that we should note there. So if you go down through, did my best to reflect the notes as best as possible. So if we go to page 3, about a third of the way down, you'll see the account number 011100556100. The rest are all zeros. That's the line that reads tuition DHS, which is Dover High School and other public high schools. That proposed budget is $2,232,295.45. That is the account line that was changed since the last meeting. That is reflecting our projected number of students that are gonna go to Dover next year if the warrant article passes.
Now that's, sorry, for just
Yeah.
clarification, so that's quite a jump up. Are there fewer students that are projected to go to Co-Brown, or,
Yeah, the way it was split was roughly 60-40.
okay, and that's the next line down is Co-Brown tuition?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
What we did,
I think your estimate per
Estimate.
student is what changed.
Yeah.
There's a new
Yeah.
contract, it'll be an increase per student, and that's what the change is. And the old report that you had current costs. It should have had projected
Projected costs.
So the
future costs.
proportions of students going to each school hasn't changed so much as the cost.
not
at
in
the
this
school.
budget, it's the cost that changed.
The
Yes.
cost
The
at the
tuition
school.
cost. So
Okay.
if you read
Yes.
the notes, will say it there, $21,225.03
For
at Dover.
an estimated 104 students, and then an estimated 147 at Co-Brown. So the number that changed, the difference is the tuition calculation is changed and went higher.
There was no change to the Go Brown line.
The account, just in case anybody gets confused, it always confuses me every year, the account note comes underneath the line.
And it's spaced,
It's spaced.
Spaced oddly,
But it
but-
refers to the line above it.
yes.
Yeah, it's a hard read.
It is a hard read.
Takes a
That's me
minute
too.
to get used to where the, no.
That's why I asked Bill to do all the reading tonight.
I tried to do it as an Excel to get it closer and it just.
Still no
fun.
It's
It's fine, it's just-
horrible.
No, once
a
you figure
reminder.
it out.
Yeah, exactly. Once you have the eyes for it.
Yeah.
All right, there were also some other changes that happened, but there were reductions. I'm not gonna really go through those because there was total about 15,000 or so total, but you'll see that on your second handout that was given. It would be that one page that shows the changes. Yes, that's the page. So you'll see those lines there. I'm not gonna go through them because it's not significant enough.
The board did meet Monday night, and we were endeavoring to just get it down a little bit lower. But then today we found out about this, so we took out 15 and added 200.
Close, nice try.
The reason being, the way we had it written, we would have had a shortfall.
If it passed.
If you did it,
If it-
Passed. Yeah.
Right, if it didn't pass,
So
we
it
had a
had to
shortfall,
happen.
because it had to happen.
Yeah.
We didn't have it properly placed in the budget, because if it didn't pass, we still have to pay for them to go to high school, and we wouldn't have had the money for it. The way we
Understood.
had it written in the warrant.
Makes sense.
We are very happy that we discovered that
Yes.
we had it written improperly.
Prior to tonight is good timing.
Yes, yes.
Yep. So on page 5, you'll see the total for the 1100 function code. Excuse me. About the fourth line from the top. So the proposed budget for the 1100 function code is $550,124.90.
Mr. Chair, if I could
Difference
just
in the
make
increase.
a comment.
Yeah,
So this meeting isn't primarily for us, it's for the public. And given that people may be watching from home, they won't know what you just referred to. Because you just gave a function code, and that doesn't mean anything to people watching.
Sure, the regular education. The
Yeah.
1100 function code is a regular education function code. Thank you, that's a great
thank you.
note.
Good clarification.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then I think we usually just tell them the increase
within the, yep.
Yeah, or decrease.
So the difference from this current year's budget is $456,128.36, and that's a 5.02% increase. So the next section is the 1200 function code, which is special education. There is no really noticeable changes there, so that would be on page 8. At the very bottom. So special education total for function code 1200 is $2,542,782.66. It's actually a reduction of $26,772.02. That is a decrease of 1.04% over this year's current budget.
And part of that relates to the contract as well, part of that reduction.
Yes.
No?
Nope, it doesn't touch it because
Okay.
special education is tuitioned differently.
Okay,
Because we pay for those students to go there, it's the special education costs.
but the contract itself gave us a small reduction in special education, the way the costs were
Yes,
calculated.
yes, yes,
That's
I'm
what
sorry, I
I'm
didn't know,
saying.
yes, there is, in the warrant article, the way the contract is written, it's, we're paying separately, differently for the Dover special education students, instead of a tiered system, it's a lower number.
So just if I may, not sure if that made the big difference in the 26 reduction, but again, for somebody who's watching, if you could say it went down 26,000 driven by XYZ, I think that would be more helpful to people.
If you happen to know, or if it's easy to summarize.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we don't need necessarily a
need like
novel,
that.
Yeah, I know.
novel answer.
Yeah, I get the gist.
Yeah.
There is a Medicaid total for function code 1299. That is, the proposed budget is $4,000. There is no difference between this year and, this year's budget and next year's budget, and there's no difference in the percent, obviously. And the next section is, function code 1410, that is co-curricular salaries. Excuse me. That total for next year's budget is $25,376.02. That is a reduction of $82, and that is 0.32% lower compared to this year's budget. Small reason for that is the retirement rates changed. Next section is the 1420s. That is on page 10. That is athletic, is 1420. The budget, proposed budget is $44,070.35. That is a reduction of $1,463.63, and that is 3.21% lower than this year's budget. Next section is 1430, which is a summer school. Next year's budget is 15,340, sorry, that's on page 11. So I'll do better with giving the page number, sorry about that. It's on page 11. It's budget total is $15,341. That is a reduction of $1,706.70. That is 10.01% lower than this year's budget. That one had to do with some of the changes that were made the other day, as well as the retirement reduction. All right, next section is the 2120s. That is guidance, and that is on page 12, just about quarter of the way to the top. That proposed budget is $257,207.08. It is an increase of $7,963.58. That is 3.2% increase over last year, this year's budget. Excuse me. The next section is 2130, that is nursing, and that is on page 13. The total is $124,603.22. The increase is $2,179.08. That is a 1.78% increase. The next section is the 2140. And that is at the total of that one is at the very top of page 14. That is special contracted services total, is 2140. That, what,
Top of what page?
page 14.
14.
The very, very
The
top,
first
almost
line.
hit it.
I misunderstood. I thought you said 20, and that didn't seem right.
Skipped ahead.
And I skipped ahead a little bit. So the budget total for that is $99,753.77. Is an increase of $49,626.61. That is a 99% increase over the previous year. The reason for that is an open position. Let's see here, where is it? Contracted service behavior went up 20%. But that, you can see that on page 13. Also on 13, contracted school psychology, psych went up 50%. It would be on page 13. So those are some of the reasons why that line went up.
Can you explain for people watching why it went up 50%?
Why, like the cost wise, is,
You just said it went up 50%.
yeah, it went up $10,000. So that's 50% because this year's budget is $20,000. The reason for that is the needs that we need at the schools.
That's the kind of statement that I think would be helpful.
It's IEP driven based on the needs of the students. So we have to have the proper contracted services to meet the needs of the students, so it's IEP driven.
All right, next section is 2150, it's speech. And that is on page 15, second line from the top. Proposed budget for that one is $249,296.76. That is a decrease of $735.60, which is a 0.29% decrease. The next function is 2162, which is OT. And that function total is at the very bottom of page 15. Contracted OT and PT services. That is in proposed budget of $122,961.65. That is an increase of $5,085.49. And that is an increase of 4.31%.
And again, that is based on services required by students as deemed in their IEPs.
I think then the biggest piece of it is based on the CDA increase, $45.96 for that role.
All right, the next section is 2169, other physical and OT therapy services. The budget for that is $17,540.64. The increase is $14,140.64. That does look like a significant increase of 415.9% increase. That is rather new for this year. We had a small amount budgeted for this current year, but the IEPs and the needs have been increased. And I believe also that is to provide special education service to identified students attending local charter schools. And I believe we want to break that out to show what other charter schools are looking like, instead of bearing in the cost with our current students at our physical locations.
So Nottingham students, regardless, if they go to a charter school,
Yes.
this district pays those costs.
Excuse me. All right, next section is 2170, and that is a student services support. So that's on, the total of that one is on the top of page 17. That is, proposed budget is $84,154.03. That is an increase of $1,944.35, which is a 2.37% increase. Next section is the 2210. And 2210 is improvement of instruction. That total is on the bottom of page 17. The budget is $81,648.15. That is an increase of $441.92, which is a 0.54% increase, excuse me. All right, the next section is the 2212s, which is library. 2212 is instruction in curriculum development. So that would be on the bottom second line from the bottom of page 18 total. The proposed budget is $159,960.98. The increase is $9,441.68. That is a 6.27% increase. The next section is the 2220s, that's the library. So again, the 2212, which I just read, was the instruction and curriculum development. 2220 is library. And that total is on page 20, about 3/4 of the way down in page 20. It's gonna read library and education media total. The proposed budget is $163,029.84. That's an increase of $13,206.76, and the percent increase is 8.81%. That is due to CBA. There's a CBA for the library, and they are gonna be doing a track change, projected next year, so that's why it's a little higher than it would normally look like. The next line is, next function is 2225, which is technology, and that would be on page 22, about 3/4 of the way down. Computer assisted instruction. Total for that line is $250,772.38. Increase of $44,989.73. That is a 21.86% increase. One of the bigger items for that is new equipment for technology. We're trying to make, trying to do a cycle through for Chromebooks for the students.
So the tech, two of them, two lines, one for 14,790 and the other for 12. We're driving most of that.
Yes, so technology replacement and new equipment is the drive for that. Thank you. All right, next section is 2310. That is described as school board services. That total would be on page 23. About a third of the way down. The proposed budget is $45,183.91. The difference is $8,936.35, and that is a 24.65% increase. One of the bigger drivers on that one is the dues and fees for school board have changed. They changed their rates. That is for
New Hampshire School Board
New
Association.
Hampshire School Board Association. They used to do 3%, now they're doing 5%.
It's one of the first increases they've had in several years.
Yeah, and they charge by board size too, I think. But the biggest number there is the 7,500 on 2310-5540 for school district meeting. So is that a reclass from another line prior? Because it was zero, obviously, we've always had to pay for school district meeting.
I believe it's for the electronic equipment. Is that accurate, Bill?
No, you're asking a question, I don't know. Just answer that question. So that's a good question.
Yeah, because it shows 7,500, but it's zero.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it
For
might be a
this year.
reclass, I think, from another. Oh, yeah.
This says school district meeting, 7,500.
I think it's the electronic equipment.
I don't have notes for that, I don't know. It might be, it might, I'm sorry that I don't have the notes for that. What we're trying to do is we're trying to upgrade our system so the school board minutes, the video, the presentation can be recorded properly and be documented properly as well. So that way we don't have an instance of what we happened this year. We had some technology issues with our school board minutes and our school board recordings.
Wasn't that covered under one of the technology lines?
Students, right?
I think it's a school district meeting. We pay a company to come in.
Right.
And for all the audio for it. I think that that's what it is. And we had,
Well, so is that like the deliberative session?
yes.
So what wasn't?
It's not supposed to be a
Oh,
debate.
I apologize. You're right, I apologize.
It's all right.
Oh, sorry.
I know, we get excited
Sorry,
about
sorry,
things.
sorry.
Thank you for the answer. You can go to the next. It's for the AV equipment.
Sure.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, next section is 2312. Oh, I passed it. That would be on page 23, about close to the bottom there, district secretary / clerk services. The proposed budget is $3,121.85. The increase is $161.47. That's a 5.45% increase. One of the reasons for that is we are looking to increase the salary for the school district clerk from $350 to $500.
That position remains open for anyone listening.
Little shameless plug.
Shameless.
Oh, it's okay.
Next section is 2313, and that is school district treasurer services. That total will be on the top of page 24. There's no change in the dollar amount or the percent, but the proposed budget is $2,153. The next section is 2314, which is gonna be 0. That would be election services total, that's what 2314 was. That account line got moved a little bit lower, so we will cover that section again. The next section is 2317, which is audit services. The budget total for that is $23,000 even. That is a reduction of $250, which is a 1.08% decrease. Next section is 2318, covers legal services. This is also on page 24. The total for that is $31,000 even. There's no change from the previous year. The next section is 2320. And that description reads as okay, that would be on the bottom of page 27. That reads SAU expense. All right, the total is $562,077.40, increase of $20,565.33, which is a 3.8% increase. Next section is the 2410. That total is on page 30, the bottom of page 30. Principal's office total, 2410. That total is $430,761.70. That is an increase of $12,280.39, which is a 2.93% increase. All right, next section is the 2500 function code. That is business fiscal services. That is proposed budget of $16,870.04. That is an increase of $4,719.05. That's a 38.84% increase. One of the bigger numbers for that is supplies for the business office, such as checks, not the postage, but the envelopes for mailing the checks, for W-2s, and some supply costs such as paper. The next section is the 2510, which is a school district bookkeeper. That total is $40,360.14. That is a reduction of $2,398.55. That's a 5.61% decrease. The next section is 2511, which is supervising fiscal services. Excuse me. The total budget is $148,844.40. That is an increase of $3,553.35. That is a 2.45% increase. Next section is the 2620, and that is on page 35. It's about 3/4 of the way down. 2620, operation and maintenance of plants. Total for that is $767,254.65. The increase of $106,187.32, which is a 16.06% increase. Supplies for custodians went up by 27.76%. And then some of the other bigger lines is the repairs for the maintenance of building, which we've talked about before. We want to do a good duct cleaning with the school, annual plumbing, boring gas, the replacement of some parts, alarm panel maintenance, and so on. Also, as well as repairs to the building, we want to make sure that the kitchen cooler and freezer stays cold for the food. That is an increase of, that would be a line item on page 34, 012620543003. That's an increase of $8,127.70, or 234%. We also, as we noted before, we have HVAC issues in our building as well, so we are trying to stay ahead of that as well. All right, but we're gonna keep moving forward. The next function code is 2630. That would be at the very top of page 36. Care of grounds, services total. The proposed budget is $27,520. It's an increase of $1,570, which is 6.05%. The next section
Is
is,
that just like the contract? We think an estimated contract increase, or?
grounds and repairs, they have low budget numbers there typically, so any increase looks like it's a bigger jump.
Yeah.
There's a large tree, dead pine tree, that's in near the visitor parking lot. We're looking to remove that. That's kind of like one of the bigger ticket items. Next section, 2721, regular education transportation. We are in a contract with that. That is, total for that is $764,044.20. That is an increase of $29,381.40, which is a 4% increase even. We got 2722, which is special education. That is proposed budget of $339,599.36, which is a reduction of $23,059.95, which is a reduction of 6.36%. And then we also have the 2724, which is the athletic transportation. That is a penny. For the proposed budget, placeholder number, just in case we can bring it back. But that is a reduction of $5,826.01. That's basically 100% reduction right now.
And just for the folks at home, that's because that has not been able to be filled. There's not enough bus drivers to provide athletics, just because I know we talked about it before.
That is correct, yep. Next section, 2725, which is field trip transportation. The budget is $12,828.64. That is an increase of $618.95, or a 5.07% increase. Next section is the homeless transportation, 2726. The budget for that is $10,000. That is a reduction of $18,800 and a penny. That is 65.28% decrease. For the total, for the general fund, this is page 37 for everyone. The total for the general fund is $17,017,242.73, or it's considered as an increase of $712,027.34, which is a 4.37% increase. And continuing on to page 37, so now we're on Fund 4, which is food service. And the food service total is on page 38. Food service total is $229,740.42, which is an increase of $17,783.75, or an 8.39% increase. So for both of those funds, one, general fund and Fund 4, food service fund, the total budget is $17,000,000, $246,983.15, or an increase of $729,811.09, which is a 4.42% increase.
Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
You have to talk over the top. Just give the bottom line.
Move on to the default.
Um,
That doesn't need to be by function, you just need to report the total, correct?
Total and anything that might have changed from, because the default budget is last year's budget, so any reason it's any different than last year's.
Contracted amounts is the biggest influencer in the default. Also, as well as we are going into a, this is a warrant article this year for para contracts, so those numbers are the same on both default and proposed, and as well as the previously mentioned tuition for Dover is reflected in the default budget as well. Now, compared to what it was in the previous meeting.
Bill,
So-
sorry, just one clarification. So you mentioned warrants. Warrants, this bottom line number, the grand total of 4.42, that doesn't include warrant articles.
Correct.
No, these do not include.
Okay, so they would be different from the town budget in that sense, so, just so I can understand, because when we did the town budget, it had to be 4% including warrant
Right.
articles, but this 4.42
Does
is
not.
apart from.
But there
That's
is
just
a tax
warrant
cap on
article
the school budget.
Yes,
two
there's
for
not,
the budget.
understand there's no tax cap on the school budget, but just so we can compare apples to
Yep.
apples. So,
I want to make
thank
sure you understand it.
Yep.
All right, so the default, we're gonna look at the default budget revenue page. It says 25-26 default budget revenue draft. It is
That
a
one?
one-pager. It looks very similar to the,
Sorry, Bill, I'm gonna back you up. You didn't actually read off the default budget numbers.
I was going to do the revenue and then the expenses.
Oh, sorry, I'm backwards.
So it's okay.
I'm just jumping the gun on you. My apologies. So let me get where you are and stop
I just wanted to
contradicting
go
you.
through the explanation so I can just go right through it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're fine. All right, so the function, general fund 01, the total budget for the default is $16,604,785.40. Which is an increase of, which actually is, yeah, it's an increase because this is revenue. $299,570.01, or a 1.84% increase. And then for the food service for the revenue, which would be on top of page 2,
Bob, would you, sorry, or Ronna, somebody, thank you.
food service fund for revenue was $211,956.67. There is a no change for the food service revenue. So the total for food service and for the general fund is, the default is 16,000. That distracted me.
Million.
$16,816,742.07, or an increase in revenue of $299,570.01, which is a 1.81% increase for the revenue. All right, and next section will be the default expenses. So if we don't have to go by the function again, right? We just go right to the end. I'll do general fund and then I'll do the food service fund. General fund budget is $60,604,785.40, or an increase of $299,570.01, a 1.84% increase. There is no change to the food service, but the budget is $211,956.67. So combined, the total budget would be, for default, $16,816,742.07, or an increase of $299,570.01, which is a 1.81% increase.
Which is what you just read on this one, right? This just breaks it down further.
Yeah, one's revenue and the other one's expense, yep. Basically.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. So that covers the budgets. And then if I can find the right piece of paper, Warrant articles.
Yes. Warrant articles, it's the only section, it says draft behind it, because this is not a final draft version, because I have to put the votes on it. Did you want to speak to this, or-
So, we'll be reading these in their entirety to adopt them.
Okay.
Don't feel the need to read it word by word necessarily, but if you could point to maybe the critical numbers and what the warrant articles are, just as the completion of the summary for the public.
Alright, so, you want me to go through it? Is that what we're doing?
Anybody up there could go through it, but yeah,
No,
you're
it's
more than
fine.
welcome to keep reading unless somebody wants to save your voice.
No, just wanted to make sure. Yep. Alright, so, February 5th is our deliver session, so everybody knows the voting is March 11th. Alright, Article 1, we have a school board member open position and a school district clerk open position. Article 2 is for the budget. Did you want me to read it as is? No? Okay, so.
I think
as
that's
we're-
fine. You can just say it's
Okay.
what we just went through in detail.
We did. So it's for the proposed budget of $17,246,983. And then the default would be $16,816,742. The estimated tax impact for the article for the proposed budget is $15.82, or for the default budget, it would be $15.31 per thousand. All right, that's Article 2. So Article 3 is to raise and appropriate for building capital reserve fund through taxation, not through the unreserved fund balance. We're looking for $325,000. The estimated tax impact if this passed would be 38 cents, and there would be no impact if it does not pass. Article 4 is for the Paraprofessional Association of Nottingham. This is for a 3-year agreement, and the estimated increase for year 1 would be $80,633. Year 2 would be $43,983. Year 3 would be $44,624. Estimated tax impact would be 10 cents for the first year for Article 4. If this passes, there'll be no impact if it does not pass.
And this one, it's a obviously newly negotiated contract, and this is an area where we are seeing increased student needs coming in, and these folks work primarily with students with special needs, and they are difficult to find. Districts statewide are having to go out and try to hire through agencies, so we seek to try to maintain our workforce in this area.
All right, Article 5 is written wrong. It should say Article 4, not Article 3. In the Article 5.
So, shall the district, if Article 4 is defeated,
Yes,
authorize school board? Yep.
Okay.
To address Article 4, cost items only.
that's correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Oh, sorry but this is why it's a draft. All right, Article 6. This is for the Dover tuition agreement. As we mentioned before, there's a no impact because we have to do the education anyway, but that's what the article is for. Article 7 would be to raise and appropriate $67,000 through taxation to replace the kiln in the art department. The estimated tax impact, if this article passes, is 8 cents per thousand.
And the kiln is original to the building, needs to be replaced. They're not being able to use it right now. They're having to send their work to other schools to fire. And it does include, we need to move walls a little bit and make sure that we get that.
Up to code.
There's been some, it's within code now, but if you put a new one in, we need to do a little bit of work around it.
That's an old kiln, huh? 1985, I think, the school's built.
95.
1995, yep.
I have potential news today that they're not even making it, and we could have a real struggle to even get parts for it, so.
Which is why we decided that we
Yeah.
just need to replace it at this point.
Just because I find this fun. For context, I started going to that school when I was 7.
You didn't go this one?
I gotta-
Yeah, I did. The first 2 years I went here.
Yeah.
But relatively old kill.
Article 8 is for the special education capital reserve account. It would be through unassigned fund balance, and we're looking for $25,000. There is no impact if this article passes, either way. Article 9 is for the tuition capital reserve, also looking for $25,000 through unassigned fund balance. There'll be no impact if this article passes. Article 10 is for the grounds and improvement capital reserve. We're looking for $15,000. And there is no impact if that article passes, because it's through the unassigned fund balance. And then Article 11 is to raise $10,000 for the textbook capital reserve fund. There will be no tax impact if this article passes, or does not pass.
And we took some time ordering these Monday night and looking at the numbers in them. We have $100,000 in this budget for curriculum, so we looked at where we think our priority is, where we know our priority is, and that's to really increase the building reserve.
People like to hear that.
So just a point of clarification and education for myself. And I apologize, I should know this. There are quite a few in here that have no tax impacts,
Yes,
but still require a vote by the budget committee.
no, town voters.
I think you typically
You
do,
typically vote on it to
Yes.
support it or not vote, support it.
Do we typically? Because I know
Right, if
when
it didn't
Tuesday
have
night
a-
we didn't. If it
have
didn't
a
have a.
monetary
Citizen
impact.
petition.
Oh, is it just on the citizens?
Well,
petitions?
if it has a dollar value.
Okay, dollar value, but even whether there's a tax impact or not?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think it
so
is just-
clarification for myself, and thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
and looking at last year, you definitely voted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought we did, but it was just, it triggered in my mind since it was
It's a matter
Tuesday.
of petition, citizen petition, and this is coming officially from the school.
This is all from the board? Makes sense.
So if these articles don't pass, then unassigned fund balance, that's the extra that comes back to the town, and that's what offset our tax rate this
Yeah,
year
this-
for the second tax bill.
We had a higher than anticipated unassigned fund balance. We retained $200,000, and we ended up having $909,000 that moved forward to offset taxes.
Do you happen to know what's in the unassigned fund?
That's something that, yeah, we need to, we've had a few issues with that. It's like timing of when cash came, was
Yeah,
the
it's
understanding.
it's a moving goalpost right now. Depends on, because I just ran the numbers the other day. It's like right now it's hovering around $1 million.
No, he's wanting to know what's in the 909 that already
Oh,
happened.
what's in the 909?
Yep.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
no, I guess that would be the current unassigned fund.
Currently.
I thought you
Yeah.
were-
Then it impacts.
Yeah, it's about, yeah, that would impact this. The
Yeah.
current is roughly $1 million.
Okay.
That's what we're looking at right now.
But we don't
That's
have,
really hard to determine.
Yeah, it's time dependent and
Yeah.
what comes and what goes.
but we've
so.
had some additional costs this year. We have
Anticipated
we have a
costs.
timing issue on some of our payables that we're exploring right now. We've got over $100,000 in new high school students that came in. And of course, all these additional costs around the heating system, which now are becoming, the cumulative effect is something we're really having to look at, so.
Excellent.
There's overtime and there's contractors in the building. I'm headed there after this. There's
Mm-hmm.
contractors in the building every day and we don't have all those. The bills, we don't get the bills daily, so
Yep.
there's a lag in when we
Understood.
get those bills.
Yep, thank you very much. Appreciate the summary and the information. If now you wouldn't mind sitting in the audience so we can open up the front mic.
You got a lot of stuff to move. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
And so if they have questions, we'll just answer from, or are you not allowing answers, or?
So it's not that we're not allowing answers to specific questions, but we're just going to try to limit the back and forth debate, because the focus of a public hearing is supposed to be receiving public comment, not necessarily the back and forth. So we're just trying to focus on that.
Indeed.
Just to the student, I already forgot. Do we need to do a vote? Excuse me, we only need to vote. Let's go. Excellent. And with that, I would like to open up the public comment section for the meeting. If any members of the public would like to come forward to comment on the budget, please do so.
Hi, Thomas Spudkevich, 2 Washington Lane. First off, may I ask, Owen, do I have to direct all of my comments through you, the chairperson?
No, you do not.
Oh, so I'm assuming that the town administrator had a talk with you and explained the many court cases that described what you did to me 2 nights ago, whereas
Keep this,
Has
these are
something to do with
questions
the
for
budget.
the school.
I'm confused about what I can ask, and I just need to clarify real quick.
So we made the rules as plain as we could. You can ask specific questions of the board, but we're trying to allow this session to be for public comment, not necessarily debate.
And so you're going to refrain from interrupting me and trying to silence me and threaten to have me thrown out of the room for speaking my opinion?
5 minutes, as long as it's within
Yes.
bounds.
And please pause it during answers from people. So first off, starting where we left off here, so we heard that there was $909,000 left in the unassigned fund balance. So last year, voters voted down the warrant article proposed budget, and we got the default budget. So the default budget was about $16.5 million. They underspent it by $909,000, which means the total real spending last year was approximately $15,608,000. So if you look at the difference between the proposed budget we have before us today of $17 million and change, the actual increase in this proposed budget over what was spent last year is actually 10.5%. 10.5%. Think about that. Also, just some other random thoughts on things we did in reverse order here from how we discussed them. Warrant Article 6, we're asking to approve the tuition contract with Dover. There's absolutely zero information here for voters to make a decision. There's no amount of money. It should at least say how much Dover is charging us in tuition per pupil, and maybe we should have some comparisons in there for what it costs at surrounding schools so that we can make an informed decision. I would also like to ask of the school people here what the enrollment was this year, what the current enrollment is. Do we know that? Let me just grab
You know, current, I know the budget has expected. Do you have current in there? So we can get you that answer. It's in the information from a
So
previous.
I'll need that to calculate the actual per pupil cost. So give me the total number of students, not just the enrollment in the elementary school.
So currently, this budget is projecting 104 students for Dover, but you were asking for last year's?
I'm asking for the total number of students that Nottingham serves.
And then, yeah, folks from the school board, if you have these numbers at your fingers, the enrollment numbers, I think they're in our folder.
Back in the binder.
We had them, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Total enrollment, as of
Totals here, right?
Yeah, June 1st, so at the end of last year, was 517 in K through 8, 180 at Co-Brown, 89 at Dover, 25 home education,
Okay, we won't count those.
one other, for a total of 803.
We don't, I'm sorry, we don't count the preschool as well?
Sorry,
Yeah,
is
well,
that pre-K
that
through
was
8?
pre-K.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said kindergarten, sorry, sorry.
That was of June 1st, this 2024.
I believe that's what those numbers were, right? Is that
That's what it
that
says,
said?
June.
End of the school year.
Yeah,
So that, just, if I got those numbers correct, that would be about almost $22,000 per pupil spending, which is quite high for this country. I'm also wondering if the school can tell us how many students in our town receive EFAs?
Was,
I looked that up, I think we.
It's educational freedom accounts,
Under 10.
under 10.
I recently looked that up on the DOE website. I'm gonna approximate it was under
and
10.
just for those at home, because Susan Levinson isn't on a microphone, she said the estimated number was 110.
No, 10. Less than 10.
Oh, less than 10. I am sorry. I did not hear that right. Roughly 6 is what it appears
That's
to
why
be.
you needed to repeat it.
Good thing I did. Roughly 6.
And then I had another question. There was a line item in there for SAU expenses with $562,000. What all's rolled into that? Is the superintendent salary and everything rolled into that?
Yes.
Okay, and then, but
There was yes.
the preschool stuff isn't, right? Because I saw there was $100,000 almost in new spending on a preschool coordinator, a special education preschool coordinator and aide.
Those are broken out, they were there before, they were broken out into their own lines. They were under the salary for teachers and parents before.
And previously, we did preschool through the SAU that we shared with Northwood and Stratford, correct?
Right, and it was sitting, was sitting up there in that line, under SAU, but in reality, we have our own now, so it just goes right into special ed.
Okay, and since all this stuff is all broken out and then some of it's consolidated, it made it really hard to judge. Are we currently saving money with our move to going away from the shared SAU and creating our own? Versus what we were paying before?
We've got up to 580. For SAU, but the business office expense is additional. So it looks like it's running about even, or maybe even a little bit more from what we were doing 3 years ago. So there's some,
Be hard to compare
increase in there, yeah.
what Northwood's costs are.
Doesn't appear there's an answer readily available, I would say.
We'll look at that and break it out.
The school board said they'll look at it.
Multiple areas, so.
Okay, my other question, the para contract that we're to approve in the warrant article, the negotiation for that para contract, was that conducted open to the public in accordance with the warrant article that passed a few years ago that ruled that all negotiations,
Tom, this
Where
needs
to
to
be
stay
done.
pertinent to the budget.
how is that not pertinent to the budget? It's a warrant
Not
article.
how Negotiations were handled. It's a budget-specific question.
I'm sorry, my question was for the school personnel.
I think the school board meetings would be an appropriate location for that, not the budget committee meeting.
You could just let her answer the question and we'd be done.
Yeah, we didn't do it publicly. We did do the statements, but we didn't do it publicly.
Thank you, Sue. That's it. See how easy it is? I'm really disappointed that you weren't man enough to apologize for your conduct the other
Okay,
night.
Tom, that's
Thank you, I'm
Yeah.
done.
No, guys, he's
Can I
a member of the public. He is allowed to have his public comments.
Can I ask one question or just clarify one thing?
So if you wouldn't mind coming up to the mic, yes.
The default budget is what we're in right now?
Yep.
Okay, all right. So the 909 was from
So,
June 30, 2024.
so the clarification, Sue, could you please come up to the microphone and make that
I
clarification,
just
just so the
wanted to-
folks at home can
Yep.
hear?
We just wanted to clarify that we're currently in the default budget. We don't anticipate having a lot of unassigned fund balance. The 909,000 that we returned to the taxpayers came from last year's budget, which was not a default. It was the period ending June 30th, 2024.
Yes, understood. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate the clarification. Do any other members of the public wish to come forward and speak?
Linda Prashadny, 16 Cabinet Court, and I did sign in.
Thank you.
So you can spell my name over there. Okay, so question, and I don't know if you know it as the Budget Committee or if you're going to need the school board to answer this, but the number of special needs students, how many do we anticipate having in 2025?
That is not something I know. Is that something the school board knows offhand?
Over 110 currently. Yeah, I could look at the last one. Each of the last
School
number.
board packet.
Okay.
And what-
So that information can be provided to you. I don't think it's readily available, but somebody will follow up.
And how does that compare to 2024? So how
Okay.
many in 2024
Danielle, if you
versus
can
2025?
possibly find that?
Got it.
Thank you.
It's like
Thought our book was
Gutenberg
bad.
Bible. Oh my goodness.
My goodness.
Because there's a lot of budget items that have increased from 2024 to 2025 that are related to special needs. So I just want to get a feel
Yep.
for how many there are and what percentage of the total population.
Understood. To that end, I do believe one of the clarifying points that was made is a lot of it is IEP driven, which isn't necessarily averaged across students. It can be very variable. But a
That's my next
similar,
question.
a similar thing we asked too, so yes,
Excellent.
apologies. Go for it.
Maybe you know the answer to this one.
We'll
So
try.
how many students in the Nottingham school, from preschool all the way to high school, how many IEPs do we have? How many students with IEPs do we have?
So the latest report I pulled up, in November, number of students identified by Student Services is 109, with 11 active referrals.
109 special needs?
Correct.
Okay.
With 11 active referrals means up to perhaps 120? Is that what you're
Correct.
saying? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I believe that's not Nottingham though, right? That's Dover too, you're still contributing to, right?
Right, but those are Nottingham students who go to Dover, just like some might be going to Co-Brown.
Dover or Co-Brown.
Right.
We're responsible for them through age 22.
Right, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Can I say?
I'm just saying, they don't all live in
Let's
Nottingham.
let Linda finish her public comment session, please. If she's got specific questions, we can absolutely answer them, but we really need to let her speak.
Okay, so we're still looking up 2024 and how many students have IEPs. And regarding the number of students who have IEPs, how many of them are a one-on-one full-day IEP person? So like, for example, I might have a child, which I did, who had reading issues. It was just a class per day. But there's some other kids in schools, not maybe the schools, that have a one-on-one paraprofessional all day to take care of that specific student.
Sorry, Rhonda, do you have that information
At
roughly?
Nottingham School, we have 11 extensive needs paraprofessionals.
Okay, so Rana's clarification for those at home was there are 11 extensive need paraprofessionals, which would be the folks that are, I am assuming, doing more something similar to a one-on-one as opposed to a general helping type condition. Okay, thank you.
We have a total of 22 paraprofessionals, how many total?
24.
24.
So,
We have one doing regular.
One general
One's
ed.
kindergarten, yep.
11 doing extensive needs, and then the difference.
One being a librarian.
Another 12?
Some of the paraprofessionals might work with a group of students, a couple of students, but it's extensive needs, it's spelled out in their contract.
Right.
What determines extensive needs.
okay.
Thank you. Then on the revenue page, there was tuition from parents. That was on page 1 of the proposed budget revenue page, towards the beginning. Tuition from parents, what grades or where does that income, what does that relate to? Why are parents paying tuition? Just nursery school?
Parents would be paying tuition if they are sending their student to Nottingham from another district,
It's per the CBA.
per the CBA.
Teachers that.
So
students
it's,
that live out of town and their parents are employed here per the CBA, they pay a tuition for the children to come here.
to get Susan's comment on the mics, it is for teachers, as part of the CBA. If they live out of the district, they can have their children attend Nottingham for a cost.
So for some of us who don't know what a CBA stands for?
Collective bargaining agreement.
Thank you. Okay, I'm good. And then on the same document, unanticipated revenue, 011990. What is that? I know you can't anticipate it again, but where did it come from
Unanticipated revenue is just that, it's unanticipated. Nobody knows what it might be, but you have to have the line in the budget to accept the funds.
It could come from grants.
Okay, but where did,
Grants or unexpected additional funds from the state or federal government or donations, there's a lot of different areas.
so that's where it came from last year? Okay, okay, good. I have one more, I think. Oh, on page 13 of the proposed budget expenses, under function, I don't know, 21, that's 2140. It's called Contracted Service ESL. Is that the English as a second language?
Yes.
That's where the majority of your increase came from, so I guess, how many students do we have that we have to have English as a second language?
Any students, we have any students that move into the district, we have to provide services for them.
I'm not sure
They
that's,
don't speak English. So how many students do we have that don't speak English when they came to the school?
is that, if that's not a number you have offhand, that's something we can get later.
I don't have that number.
Yeah, we don't have that on hand, so we'll get that for you.
Thank you. Is my 5 minutes up?
No, you have 2 minutes left.
Okay. On page 31, under, let's see, business financial services, that's 2,500, function 2,500. At the top of the first line, which is 2,500, then .5319.00, and a bunch of other zeros. It increased, it's a budget office consultant. Do we have one person and we're just increasing their salary by $4,500 from $3,000 to $7,500? Or is it a
That
consulting
seems like a reasonable
system?
assumption. I'm not sure what it is.
So is it a person or is it a per-hour consultant that the school uses on occasion?
It's an outside consultant that is used to occasionally perform audit-type services to meet federal requirements, I believe.
We have someone that comes in and helps with some of the reporting and some of the reconciliations. A high-level CPA that has worked in this particular sector for his entire career, and he can do the higher, some of those very complex areas per hour.
Okay. So are we anticipating we're going to use him twice as much in the next year? Or has his salary increased or his per-hour charge increased dramatically?
We'll get back to you with that one. I don't have that in front of me.
Okay. I think that's it for now. Thank you. Thank you.
Got a whole minute left, too.
Do any other members of the public wish to speak?
I just have a follow-up question. I'm looking at this, this form here. I was just wondering, at the very bottom of it, it provides an estimated tax impact, and in the very bottom right corner, it shows the estimated tax impact is an increase of 4.84%. Is there a reason that's different than the 4.4, whatever we saw in the budget?
So estimated tax impacts have several different factors that go into them. Changes in revenue is one part, anticipated revenues for the following year. And then how unassigned fund balance gets counted from year to year also changes those numbers. I don't have the specifics, but I do remember when we discussed this, those were the types of things that make those numbers not exactly aligned.
So we shouldn't necessarily look at the number in the budget increase. We should, if we're concerned about our taxes going up, we should look at the estimated tax impact then.
That is that calculation,
Okay.
correct?
So that's the 4.84%. So I'm just wondering, like, I'm sure, you know, the budget came in higher earlier and the school worked to get it down and everything, because they always do with the increases. I'm wondering, what did you, as the budget committee, what did you do? What lines did you edit, that type of stuff to do to help control, tax increases in this
That
budget?
was at all of our public meetings. I can't recall every single thing we looked at, but you're welcome to review the online minutes or come to the meetings.
Did you edit any lines?
Well, we can change particular lines, but the school always has the ability to move money in between lines. So our focus this year, I believe, wasn't necessarily line by line. It was a more holistic approach, but yes, we did look at it.
So there were no edits made from the budget committee?
It's not what I said.
Were there any lines changed, numbers? Any?
I said you can go back and review all the articles. I'm not. gonna
Surely you
say-
can remember if you changed any lines whatsoever.
I don't remember any.
I don't remember if we changed any or not.
Okay, well, a member here says that none were changed, so it sounds like nothing, the budget committee didn't really do anything. And then I just have one last question for the school. There's a thing, I'm sure it's in one of these gigantic binders, we didn't get that in our handout. There's usually a special education page that outlines kind of like exceptional student spending. It's a non-personalized, non-identifiable thing where they just say like student A. Yeah, I was wondering if you could read just the top 3 totals for tuition and education. So these would be for a single student each, these numbers.
Oh, okay, just the top.
Yep.
Could you come to the microphone,
sure.
Bill?
Sure. When you say top 3, you want the highest ones or just?
The highest for each, yeah. Because I don't know how many are on there, we don't want to take up.
Sure. So top 3.
Give people an idea of how much is spent on single students sometimes.
Sure, I understand the question. All right, student A, $154,176.68. Student C, $118,173.12. And then student D, $84,736.08.
Thank you, Bill.
There's a transportation line too, right?
Yes, well, yes, there's,
What's the top 3 on that?
there's only 2. In district, specialized route, $127,895. And then high school out of district, specialized routes, $176,342.40.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Is there any other comments from the public at this time?
On another line item. Linda Prashadny again. So on the proposed budget revenue page again, there's a Medicaid line, 4580 is the account number, I guess. And in 23-24, we only received $161, basically rounded up. But we're anticipating we're gonna get $30,000. Why the big difference?
I don't remember why we called that out. Bill, is that additional information you could
Sure, yeah,
provide?
it's, so when you reimburse
Sorry, Bill,
Med-
I'm gonna ask you to come to the front again. Microphone.
I'll share with you, Bill.
For the Medicaid line, it is, we can do a 3-year look back. So with the way the state has been going with the special education and kind of cutting funds and everything, we go through a contracted service provider, if you will, contracted service to get those reimbursement funds, because you cannot double dip. So if somebody's using IDA funds, they can't get Medicaid. So there's an approval process as well. But there's a 3-year look back, and since everything's been kind of wonky, they've kind of gathered everything but haven't executed anything because they don't know where it's going to land. So the idea is, this is the idea,
Okay.
is we're supposed to get some of those revenues back. Especially because last year was also $30,000, from which you stated
Right,
it was a low
right.
number, but we're expecting to get those funds back.
Okay, that makes
Those
sense.
reimbursements, if you will.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, thank you much.
Any other comments? With that, we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Motion by Donna,
Second?
second by Charlotte. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, 10-0. So now we need to go through, read, and vote on all all of the articles that we need to vote on, which is not actually all of them, just most. That's all over there. So, Article 1 does not require a vote. That would be the upcoming elections. Excuse me. Article number 2. Shall the Nottingham School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the vote of the final session for the purposes set forth therein totaling $17,017,921, which does not align with the number as written. So I shouldn't have read the words. Let me try the number as written. $17,246,983. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $16,816,742. I am, just because of my own confusion's sake, gonna check the numbers that just were reported to us to make sure I'm reading the right ones, so we don't have to vote on this again some other night. Second number I read for, the proposed was correct, and then somebody got the default in front of them, they can just double check that 16,816. Make sure I read that right.
Sorry, we changed it right up until we got it.
Yep.
No worries, just want to make sure we get it right. Okay. Which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous actions of the Nottingham School Board or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Roman numeral 10 and 16, Roman numeral 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget. Estimated tax impact of this article passes is $15.82 per 1,000. Estimated tax impact if this article does not pass is $15.31 per 1,000.
Mr. Chair, before we take a vote on our recommendations, can we discuss the school budget, the proposed budget?
Absolutely, because that's what we were supposed to do in the first place.
All right.
I'm skipping.
Nope, I think we have to read that
We
first.
open discussion for it.
We have to
Okay,
read it,
and then we open discussion, right? Okay, no, I did do it right. See,
correct,
I'm
yep.
thinking I'm in the wrong order all the
No.
time. We're getting there.
Moving
Thank
along,
you
yeah.
much. Okay, discussion on school budget.
I have an idea I wanted to float. Forgive the analogy comparing the school to Walmart, but Walmart avoids sticker shock, and they sell a lot of their product. I think two things. This $17 million number is gonna cause some sticker shock. So thinking out loud, what would the board think or consider or discuss reducing that number into the $16 million range? This year was a default budget. It was difficult on the school. We know that heating expenses, kiln, I know we're in contract negotiations, but times are tight for the average homeowner in Nottingham too. Inflation's up, the cost of everything is up. So by way of compromise, floating out a number, $16,998,000. I think that lowers the shock. I think that could be a lot closer to getting passed. No, it's not the ideal budget, but it's a lot better than, for the school, than going into a default budget. I know the school has, in past years, when we've mentioned this, they had suggested a bottom line number, and they're able to adjust the line items within the budget. So rather than going through the budget line and picking this and this and this, what does the board think about just discussing this idea of reducing the bottom line number, getting something that's probably more likely to pass, in my opinion, but without
What was the number you threw out?
$16,998,000.
What percentage increase would that be? Do we know?
I hadn't taken the time to do the math, but we can math it.
I'm number feels a bit specific. I'm assuming there was something, or was it, like, is it the average? I'm just
To be honest,
curious.
it's a marketing.
Oh, okay.
It's sales and marketing.
99
You
cents?
avoid that 999
I
and
get
you
what
put
you
an
mean.
8 in there and it feels lower.
If
Gotcha.
it's
Oh, okay.
$16.99
I see
instead
what
of
you're saying.
17, you think of it
It's
as
one
being
of-
16, I get it, yeah.
Rule number one of sales and marketing.
Sales carman there?
Well,
So,
Car salesman?
what's the,
So I would.
what is that, like a $200,000?
approximately, yeah. it'd be
250?
About 250,
About 250.
approximately.
And without the tax impact calculation, it wouldn't be perfect.
Yeah.
But we'll say roughly speaking.
$248,983 if I punched everything in correctly.
Then last year's budget was, I'm just trying to get the percentage, Bob, sorry. Last year's budget was 16,
1,816.
what was last year's budget?
Last year.
It should be on the default here, summary. It's default revenue. Where is it? Should be right.
Isn't it on the warrant article there, 16,816?
Oh, that's the default.
That's the default.
16,517. Okay, 16,517,172. Appears to be 2.9%, if I'm doing the math correct. 16,998 would represent a 2.9% increase over 16,517, which was the 24-25 budget.
And that's without the warrant articles, correct, if they
And,
pass?
yeah, so,
Correct.
and still we're in the different than the town, so that was, they were at 4.42, not including warrant articles.
The town or the
That would be the school.
school, yeah.
Yep. Where the town calculation, like I said,
Was-
includes a warrant.
Yeah.
I mean, to add to this, where it makes me feel like it might not be so crushing, is the school has historically had some funds in the unassigned fund that were returned to the town. It feels like an average into the $300,000 to $400,000 range. They average a surplus every year, and that gets returned to the town from unassigned fund balance. So their budgets have traditionally been, they've had that buffer, which is good, but, you know, if you traditionally have a buffer, maybe you could remove that.
Yeah, 2021 was 430,000 unspent, 2022 was 529,000, 2023 is because the boiler, I think it was only 80,000. I think the boiler was like 168,000 added to that fund. And then 2024 was 909,000, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So I do agree with you, Mike, I do see it.
Some of that 900,000 though was unanticipated revenue as well, and I don't recall what the two specific sources were.
Couple different
Oh, it's
sources,
from
yeah, we
the,
talked about it.
Like,
COVID.
no, it was from the, when we separated, I thought, we got it back, like, it was a lot, it was like around
Yeah, there was
290,000 or
It
something.
a
was a
financial
check.
settlement from SAU, whatever it was
Northwood.
before.
SAU,
That was a
right.
big one,
Yep, yep.
140, I
Yeah.
can't remember.
Yeah, so that's, I just think it's important to note that some of that was in unanticipated revenue that influenced that number.
So it's not gonna happen again.
Seems highly unlikely we'll get more money out of that SAU than MT does.
Yeah, this is the most I've ever saw, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that one's definitely significantly different than previous.
Yeah, usually it's 500,000. You talk to, my neighbors used to be on the budget committee 15 years ago. It's usually around 500. It's a little fluff, because things happen, you know what I mean?
I think you read off, the numbers you read off seemed to be between 400 and 500, except for the year with the boiler,
Right.
which was basically skin of our teeth. That one was pretty tight. Which at this point would be my one big feeling of caution. We need to spend a pretty significant amount of money to get this school functional right now, to the point where we're not canceling school because the heat doesn't work. Coming off a default budget where a lot of class time was missed, where students for the last couple of weeks have been in the teacher's lounge and the cafeteria and the gymnasium for class. I'd be concerned. I understand your point, Mike. The concept is to try to get a budget that's gonna pass.
Right.
I do understand that and appreciate that, but my concern is if we do that, are we gonna lose the ability to fix these heating systems and upgrade the school to the point where kids aren't in a windowless teacher's lounge for class? That's my concern. I guess that's my hesitation.
Mine is, the boiler's part of the big main purchase, and it's already been bought. You know, what I mean, I don't know if the warranty is on them or whatever. You know, I don't know what the estimate for pipes if you had to replace.
Right, it's not the boiler that's bad.
Yeah, it's not the
It's
boiler,
supporting.
and that's a,
Yeah, it's
that was a
everything
big
else.
ticket. Yeah, well, that's usually the most expensive, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
but-
put a boiler in your house, it's the boiler, it's, you know, you can run PEX, you can run copper, you can run, you know.
Probably
whatever.
not here though, because of the extensive piping going from the rooftops
And the
to.
air handlers.
There's also
and
air handlers on
filters
the
and-
roof,
yeah,
which are
there's a
pretty
lot.
costly, so that's a little different than a homeowner's unit.
True, true.
We're not heating with a standard forced out water, where we're heating with forced out air, but we're using a boiler to do it, which is different than way most people think about things.
It's true.
Right, I just meant, you know, a homeowner's boiler doesn't cost $250,000.
No, that's,
Yeah, God.
That was
I
my.
hope not. My house should be valued a lot more.
Well, here's the thought though. So there was a line, I'm not gonna be able to find it in their budget now, but there was a line, it was a pretty significant maintenance line for the upgrades to the boiler. So I feel like that line is accounted for. I do feel like the school is, you know, consistently averages $300,000 to $400,000 extra. So I know it feels tight, but man, things are tight at home too. A lot of folks I know in town, like, people are feeling the pinch. I guess that's all I can say about it, is like, yeah,
Yep.
it might not be ideal, but a compromise might be better than default, so.
I agree, Mike. I know that when we met a couple weeks ago, we didn't change any line items. Tom is right, we didn't do that because everything in this school budget is valuable. And it recognized a lot of thought on their part. However, I really am hearing and feeling what you're saying, Mike, that we might end up with a much lower amount. And this compromise, this statement that you're offering might actually pass and get us more money than we would have otherwise.
Just go back to
And that's
default.
important.
Yeah.
That's important. I mean, it's one thing to go for what is ideal, for what you know you absolutely need, but if the balance is that you're going to get significantly less than that, and the history is that that's what happens, I'm gonna go with your suggestion, Mike.
So I will say, the two areas I saw that would be hurt, I believe, would be the math curriculum. There's a lot of money going into the new math curriculum, and technology. And so those were two things I didn't think we should cut, because that goes to the quality of the education of the children. So I hear you, but I am concerned about cutting math curriculum. So that was over $100,000, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was a big
price
one.
tag on that one.
Right, right.
Yeah, I get it too, Mike, and what I'm struggling with here is like, what's the right number?
Yeah.
Is like approximately 250
Yeah.
too much? I do think that there's two sides of the coin, though. I think one is the number, but I think the other one, and my personal belief is that last year, the town and the school both did not do a good job of presenting their case and their budget to the public. And I think both the town and the school has to look at that this year and do a better job. The other thing, like, I think we mentioned this last time, was that like in the school budget, it's like 70% under contract or something that we don't have any wiggle room with.
But isn't that,
Contract negotiations, though.
Well,
So,
sure,
But the contracts have been negotiated, meaning
Yeah,
that
right.
these
Yeah.
increases are not optional at this point in time.
but that's reflected in the new default, the 16,000, or 16 million?
Correct.
Yes.
You're right.
So, you know, that's sort of your bottom line, right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we were saying that, the bottom line was the default, I think that was at 1.8. Or, you know, with that number, it was at 2.9, so.
Yeah, what was that was 16, what's that number, just to make sure.
16.
16, what was it? 816.
Yep.
So,
So I don't disagree, I just
Yeah.
am not sure what I think that number should be.
Shouldn't that have been done before tonight?
Well, Steve, it's a process, you know?
I haven't been involved, I'm just saying. It would have been nice if we'd add this out prior to the public hearing.
I don't know, Steve, I mean, I guess typically these meetings go to midnight, so we're doing pretty well.
Yeah, I know.
We also don't receive perfectly packaged information the first night that we're ready to discuss something.
I get it, I get it.
any
It
other,
actually took a while, because there were a lot of numbers that were left blank in here that we didn't know about for a long time.
We're talking about a warrant article where the wording doesn't line up with the numbers written, so.
things are active and changing. Any other thoughts on
How much earlier we
the,
could have been.
any other thoughts on the, I guess, concept on the table? It wasn't a motion or anything, right?
No, I guess not, it was just a
okay.
discussion point, yeah.
Just want to make sure I'm using the right words.
Well, I'm going to say again, I totally get your point, and I don't disagree. I do feel like an awful lot of cleanup has been done in the last year or so. I think you inherited a mess from Northwood, and I really appreciate the fact that so many line items have been cleaned up. So I have more faith in what the numbers are than I did last year, due to no one's fault. Just, I think we're tightening things up and getting some consistency, and that's very helpful to us. I think it, in some weird way, it's kind of like the newsletter article thing. What is the temper of the voters? Do we want to bring it down to get more than we would for the default? Or do we want to play the whole hand? I don't know. I'd like to see you get what you need, but I also get your point. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
So-
open,
Make a motion.
I'm open to reducing it. I like how you came up with the number, by the way.
It's,
Honestly, to put it out there, I mean, it's not,
I mean, yeah, I mean, if people would be more comfortable with a number, you know, 17,050,000, you know, if swinging it by 50,000 makes the board more comfortable and, you know, we swing it that way, but is there a consensus, a feeling? Is 1750 feel better? Or, because it really is, it's a feeling of what can both get passed and be adequate.
I'm thinking that your original explanation of the 998 and the sales thing, if we want to reduce the budget so that we can get it passed, because we have a history, a recent history of losing everything at the town elections, then I like the number that you came up with. I think it's a good sales number and a good sales pitch to the voter, to raise, to be something more than the default and something that we can work with. And it's going to present a huge problem for the school, I know that, but not as huge a problem as if it didn't pass at all.
So one comment, or clarify me if I'm getting this wrong, but if we went with the 16,998, that's basically 180K over the default.
right.
Which, when I look at it that way,
Yep.
seems small to me.
Yeah. 17,050. And does that swing the pendulum?
Gets you to about, what, 240, 230, 240? Over, if you're doing that math?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's about, yeah, be about halfway between the two. Maybe a little closer to the proposed. Keeps that percentage point down. I must be honest, I do like seeing that 2.9%. I mean, that's a pretty number, but if the board consensus is a little higher, would bring the vote. I mean, I'm not living and dying on it.
So 2.9 matches inflation. Roughly for this year, it was just published a couple days ago. I think it matches it actually almost exactly. So
It seemed like
essentially, a 2.9 proposal would be another default budget, because inflation is going to keep all of those prices, such as the increasing prices in paper, office supplies, contracts, salaries, all those kinds of things. If we're just matching inflation from a default budget, I think it still keeps us at a default budget.
well,
That would be my sense of it. The
We'd be-
1.81 doesn't take into account, that's only the contractual obligations. If you're looking at the default budget increase over last year, that wouldn't include things like the food budget going up 40% because cost of food and milk has gone up. You know, that line item. I would say, well, I understand it's hard on folks and times aren't easy. I think not providing adequate meals because the cost of food has gone up, and not being able to have school when parents are counting on kids to have school so they can go to work might be just as detrimental. Is there an in-between number?
Can I
don't
ask
know.
a question? Because we talked about it a little bit before at one of the meetings with these guys about the math curriculum and the expense of the math curriculum. And one of the things that I felt was important for me to know about that was, and I don't think they had the information at the time, was what's the value of that new math program? How much additional value is that going to bring? Because to me, that is an input into, does it justify the cost of it? And you kind of raised that question as well. So can we ask them if they've done more research into that now so that they can explain to us why it's important to have that significant of an increase?
I think improving the way we educate children is gonna be the answer. I don't think they're gonna be able to say this $100,000 program justifies 3.5% average increase on grade scores or something like that, if that's what you're looking
But I think they could
for.
give us some of what we like about this new math program is, prior to the previous one, it gives us, this and this that we can cover with students, which is important.
Agreed, but I'm not sure that's a long conversation, and I'm not sure that's tonight's conversation.
Okay, I'm just looking at it from the
Yeah.
perspective of, I could go and I have a car, for example, and I could go and look at a new car, but I have to understand what's the value of getting that new car over what I've got right now, to understand if the cost is worth it. That's,
I understand the concept and I agree, but I think that's a hard apples to apples comparison, because I think the complexity of this is probably pretty high. Also, I know a fair more about comparing a car to a car than I do an educational system to an educational system. I'm not sure that I could get that distilled in a way that I'd be able to do an apples to apples. I don't know, I'm not an educator, but that would be my
I
opinion.
respectfully disagree, but I will.
No, you don't have to stop, I'm just
add
having
my
the,
2 cents worth,
just
too?
having the discussion.
I think one of the reasons that there's a math change, and I could be wrong, correct me if I am, but it was a national phenomena, that particularly, I believe it was third graders, really suffered terrible losses in math learning during COVID. We also denied them the chance to rehire the math tutor who had, or the math specialist last year who had been under a grant, and we decided we didn't want to fund that, you know, with the benefits and everything else that went with that. And I do think it's hard, I mean, education and learning, it isn't a business, and I get what you're saying, and I like to do that too, Dawn, I know what you mean, but I don't think I think that's a very hard comparison. And we did turn down the math tutor, which I think was a wise thing at the time, but I'd be in favor of, I think.
Well, I would just assume that if the school was looking to invest in a new program, that they would do a cost-benefit analysis of it, and that they would be able to share the results of that to us to help communicate why.
Okay, but I'm not sure how do you put a cost on the learning?
Well,
Especially unless it's a long
I'll let it go.
term.
I'll let it go.
You don't have to let it go.
No, you don't have to let it
It's
go.
an allowable conversation.
Yeah. I mean, unless it's a long-range survey
I'm
to
not
see.
asking for grades, I'm not asking for numbers, I'm just asking for why do you think it's important to buy a new math curriculum? You know.
Okay, so you don't really need a cost analysis, you just want to know why it's important.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay,
Just looking for a summary.
yeah, yeah. So I thought I kind of gave my 2 cents about that, why I think it's important, but I'm not you.
We can't talk right now.
Oh, sorry, yes, sorry.
No,
I
no, we
forgot.
closed the public session.
I forgot.
I would say, as weird as it sounds, math isn't necessarily math anymore. And I would say the reason that is because it's not that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. It's that we're learning as we grow as educators that how a child learns that 1 + 1 = 2 is not the same. So I was looking at this from perhaps another perspective. The differential in the default budget, so not even what we're talking about in between, the default budget and the proposed budget is 51 cents per thousand. So if you have a $300,000 home, that is, I don't know what the average assessed value, maybe that's not high enough, maybe it's 400,000 now, but let's say, because I did it on my calculator and it's in front of me, you have a $300,000 home, 51 cents per thousand, that's $153 that your taxes increase in a year. So the in-between number that we are talking about with this differential, finding something in between, we're looking at less than $100 for an annual basis. I think it personally cost me more than $100 when my children missed multiple days of school because of the heat system. So for me, looking at it from that perspective, that, in my mind, justifies the proposed a lot more. That doesn't answer perhaps your fundamental question, which is this going to pass?
Essentially, will they buy it?
Right.
Because a lot of people aren't gonna walk to the voter booth
Right.
with their
Right.
calculator and their assessment in hand, you know, so it's
Understood,
more of
but,
an emotional. So,
but
Much money
perhaps
is
that's
going to the
part of
heating
the
system, though.
explanation we need
Yeah.
to do too.
Right.
Make sure people understand the impact of the numbers.
so how about, here's a suggestion so we can maybe scooch along. I'm gonna suggest that we move the question. We'll start at the 16,998. Maybe we can take a vote, and then we'll try one more time at 17,050.
If somebody wants to make a new motion.
If
and
someone
then
wants to make a
we'll
new
see how that
motion, and
goes.
then if we're stalled out, then we'll move along, and it is what it is.
I think
Does
that
the
makes a
board
lot
say?
of sense.
Can I speak to curriculum?
So yeah, you're on the board, Danielle.
Please, please.
Just a few notes. So it's approximately 107,000 for a 6-year program. So that is a cost savings in itself, because if we bought it in cycles of every year or every 3 years, the cost would be exponentially higher. So going with a longer term contract is actually a cost savings. That works out to be about $33 per student per year. Why do we need it? It includes renewal of subscriptions to online programming and access for students and teachers through the tech piece of that. Also, it's the consumables. So if we don't get new curriculum, they won't have new consumables. It's new teacher workbooks. So in our mind, it fits into the review, you review it, you budget for it, and you implement it. So it's part of our cycle. And usually we will look at 3 and 6 year contract terms for the renewals of our curriculum for that cost savings. So that's why we put forth the 6 year, because it would save us thousands in the long run.
Well, there's a cost analysis.
Thank you. I'm just so quiet, I know.
Really good.
Okay, why did we listen to her?
Appreciate it. So,
So
in
I
that
guess-
case,
in that
I would entertain a motion to modify the proposed total to $16,998,000 $0.00.
I'll make that motion to modify the proposed budget to $16,998,000.
Motion by Michael Kelly,
Second?
I'll second.
second by Bob Kelly. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Motion does not pass.
Mr. Chair, can I make a motion to modify the proposed school budget to $17,050,000?
Absolutely. Motion by Michael Kelly to modify proposed school budget to $17,050,000.
Second?
Motion on the table. We need a second. Second
Second.
by Robert Kelly. All those in favor?
Wait, I'm sorry, I just.
Can we do some math
I did
first?
the math.
Oh, sorry, there's more math going on? Apologies. We'll slow roll the vote.
I need to,
61,000 more, right?
We needed more math when we were in school.
I need to know what that's down from the 17,246.
Yeah.
200,000. Just a hair under 200,000.
Yeah.
One,
What's the drop there?
That's old school math.
196,000 down.
Ish. That's engineer math. That's what that is. How close is it? Ish.
17.
Oh, it's fair. Maybe I should go back to school for some better
What's
math
the delta?
curriculum.
No.
I just don't.
Oh, my kids, no.
I can't do it.
You were
It's
just 17
murder.
million. 246.
Remember bonds.
So I'm just gonna keep talking.
That's about
Oh,
196.
196.
Yeah.
Man, sorry, mathing.
It's a lot of math.
So it depends. 2021 is 430,000. 2025, 29. This is because of the boiler.
Finding
What
that
was
is
it?
gonna be.
Boiler, so it was only 80, and then this year's 900.
Waiting to see who puts down the cell phone calculator last. Donnie, almost
I
there.
know.
Donna's on Facebook over there.
Don's on Facebook.
I'm live streaming.
No, live streaming.
A couple 100,000 every year.
She's rolling her Instagram stories. Did you get your number?
Yeah, I'm,
Everybody's comfortable, so if that is the case, I'll entertain the vote at $17,050,000 as moved. All those in favor?
Wow, we lost.
2. All those,
More money and we
all
lost a
those,
couple.
all those opposed? Motion fails. So in that case,
I tried.
I would like to entertain a motion to vote on Article 2 as originally read.
I'll make the motion to vote on Article 2 as originally read.
Motion by Michael Kelly,
Second.
second by Sandra Jones. All those in favor?
In favor of taking a vote, or in favor of the?
No, in favor of the article.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, just, I think we've been doing too much math. Everybody forgot where we
wait a
were.
minute, let me figure that out.
Oh, okay, so,
All those in favor of
original,
That looked so good.
that was amazing. That was not what I was expecting. So, this would be the vote for the $17,246,983 as noted in written on the warrant article.
Do you recommend this?
Is this the recommendation of the board? So that is the vote we are all about to take. So, all those in favor of that number? 7 in favor, all those opposed? 3. Motion carries 7-3 for recommending budget as written. Article 3. See if the Nottingham School District will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $325,000 to be added to the Building Repair Capital Reserve Fund previously established. Current balance on 12/31/24 is $214,256.20. Majority vote required. Anticipated deposit of $50,000 from FY24 unreserved fund balance and anticipated withdrawal of $65,000 for HVAC repairs, making the anticipated balance as of 6/30/2025 $199,256.20.
I move we pass the article as read.
Motion by Sandra Jones,
I'll second that.
second by Charlotte Fife. All those in favor? 7 in favor. All those opposed? 3. Recommended vote of 7-3. Article 4, shall the Nottingham School District approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Nottingham Paraprofessional Association and the Nottingham School Board, which calls for the following increases in salary and benefits at the current staffing level over those paid in the fiscal years 2025 to 2026, estimated increase $80,633, 2026-2027, estimated increase $43,983, 2027 to 2028, estimated increase $44,624, to raise and appropriate the sum of $80,633 for the 2025-2026 fiscal year, such sum representing the additional costs attributed to the increase in salaries and benefits over those in the appropriation at current staffing levels paid in the prior fiscal year. Estimated tax impact if this article passes is 10 cents per $1,000. Tax impact if this article does not pass is 0 cents per $1,000. I would entertain a motion.
I move we, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna just ask a clarifying question.
Yeah,
Yes.
same here.
Do I remember these numbers become cumulative?
Correct.
So the 2025-26, that's for the first year, and
Yep.
then 43,983 gets added to that for the second year.
If the warrant passes the year before, because essentially the vote is on that one sum, the 80,633 per year, correct?
Right, but it's a 3-year, so this
Yeah.
warrant is in effect for 3 years.
Correct.
The first year, it will cost the town.
Sorry, right, yes.
Right?
Yep.
80,633. The second year, 124,616, and then the third year, by my math, 169,240. It gets added to.
Correct, that is
every year.
cumulative.
Right.
Is there any way we can,
We talk about this every
Every
year.
year, and every year I'm gonna bring it up.
And every year the lawyer goes, no, this is how it's written.
And every
No matter
year
how
I'm
many
gonna-
times we've looked at it, every year we do the same. I agree, I do
Accepted, yeah,
understand
yeah.
the concept. I almost wish there was another column next to it for like called cumulative or something, and that would answer it, but we have been told by the lawyers, this is how it is supposed to be written.
Also, I had a quick question, please. See, it looked like this proposed budget, there's already salary increases. So is this on top of that, or am I reading this wrong?
That's what I was looking for the paras in there?
Yeah, well, that's just the one line pairs, there, and I see in this, well, that's the healthcare for the pairs, that's only 3 of them, so, you know, page 1, it has 183% on the salaries and healthcare, it's 270%, but I think there's more pairs throughout the budget, so I'm wondering, is this on top of it, or?
They tell us there were approximately 20 paras, right?
24.
Yeah,
24.
24, something, yeah,
is
34.
the new,
teachers,
Danielle, is
24.
this a new
Sometimes there's
contract
more.
for the para?
Fluctuates.
Yeah,
Okay, so this is a new 3-year contract for the paras?
correct.
Okay.
So that's a lot of money. In just the first year,
Mm-hmm.
if you divide that by 24.
I would imagine that
Well,
would
the
be.
first year's in the budget, in the budget. It's
Okay,
already
the
built
first
in
year's
there.
in
The
the
first
budget.
year.
It's built.
No, no, no? Not?
No, because
Oh.
we'd be double counting it if it was.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay.
No worries.
But there are increases in this budget for them.
I would imagine there's probably some sort of default setting that the CBA goes to if the CBA approval doesn't pass. Usually that's how those collective bargaining agreements are written. I think they basically default to the old one if the new one isn't approved.
Okay.
At least that's how ours work, the ones I negotiate.
So if this passed, the 80, does that mean that there's already some amount of that built into the budget, so?
Some
this would be
default
the
setting.
default, so it's actually, it's gonna be a little less
This
of
is-
that in terms of an additional, right?
No, I believe this would be the additional over
That's
that.
the additional.
Because you couldn't have it both, because
Okay.
you'd be double counting it in the tax
Yeah, okay,
calculations.
okay, yeah.
I would imagine, based on the description we got earlier, this is probably to try to be able to better hire. That seems to currently be an issue, so I would imagine if that's the issue, that's probably why that first number is so large relative to the other ones. So if there's no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to vote as read.
So moved.
Moved by Sandra Jones,
Seconded by Michael Kelly.
second by Michael Kelly. We have an echo. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is a fantastic question. How does that go in the books?
Oh, boy.
Just
didn't-
Recommend or not recommend?
Oh, we did.
Budget
talk
committee
about that, though.
It doesn't,
Beginning.
does not.
You said it doesn't recommend.
right?
It does not, because a motion doesn't pass unless you have a majority.
Yeah, we talked about
Correct.
that beginning.
So it should actually read, and this is just a clarification for how it's written, it does not pass by
not
recommendation,
recommend.
does not recommend, thank you, does not recommend by a vote of 5 to 5. Okay, thank you, good, we're all good. Article 5 does not require a budget committee vote, so we'll move to Article 6, which does. To see if the Nottingham School District will vote to ratify and approve the tuition agreement between the Nottingham School District and Dover High School for the purpose of educating Nottingham students in grades 9 through 12 for a 7-year period beginning on July 1st, 2025, and ending on June 30th, 2032, with an additional 1 or 2-year extension if desired. Said approval also subject to approval of the substantive terms of this agreement by the State Board of Education. I would entertain a motion.
So there's no dollar.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's no dollar sign on that.
So we're
It's a
just
good
given a
point. There's n-
blanket,
There's no dollars on this one, so we do not likely then need to actually vote.
No.
I also don't understand the purpose of this being presented without a dollar amount.
I agree with that, Tommy.
It's a 7-year, that's a long contract.
It is a long
but
contract.
we don't even know how
But
much
we don't know
it's
what the
gonna
numbers
be.
are.
The numbers are built into the new budget, which is those numbers that we just saw. They brought them up because they were
It's-
actively in
It's
negotiations. when we
higher than
saw it last time.
Co-Brown, I saw
Yeah,
that.
it's just a hair higher than Co-Brown now.
Never liked that before.
No, Co-Brown was higher for the last couple of years, at least that I've seen it. It's within maybe 1,000.
But this is because it's going 7 years, I'm sure Co-Brown's gonna catch up, if not pass it, maybe.
I'm sure it's probably as much the timing of the contracts as anything
Yeah,
else.
true.
You know, whenever they expire. To that end, this is calling for a budget committee vote. I don't want to mess up this system by not taking a vote. If we need one, I don't really think calling an extra meeting just so we can vote on this article is what anybody here
Let's
wants to
not
do.
do that.
So,
But are they calling for a vote just because they did it for every other article? Because like the town didn't put
they
this
didn't
on.
do it for Article 5. They clearly didn't call
Right.
for that. So I would imagine that this is a legally required need for us to vote on it. So I think we should vote on it, and if the vote is not needed, it does not need to be included in how the warrants are represented. I think that covers us in either case. How's that sound?
Okay.
Does that make sense to folks? If they just don't include it, then it's just not there. But at least if we vote, then
So I
it's
make
there.
that motion as written.
Sandra Jones moves to recommend Article 6 as written.
I'll second.
Second by Karen Quinn. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm abstaining.
Abstention of 1. So recommendation, board votes to recommend by a vote of 5 to 4 to 1. Article 7, to see if the Nottingham School District will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $67,000 to replace the kiln for the art department. This includes an estimate to retrofit the space. Majority vote required. Estimated tax impact if this article passes is 8 cents per thousand. Tax impact if this article does not pass is 0 cents per thousand. Would entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion, yes.
Motion by Michael Kelly,
I'll second.
second by Robert Kelly. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Opposed? Motion to recommend passes by a vote of 9 to 1.
You don't have your coffee mug made in school, do you? You're a monster.
Article 8, to see if the Nottingham School District will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of up to $25,000 to be added to the Special Education Capital Reserve Fund previously established. This sum is to come from June 30, 2025, unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1st, 2025. No additional amount to be raised by taxation. Current balance on 12/31/24 is $178,864.33. Majority vote required. Anticipated deposit of $25,000 from FY24 unreserved fund balance, making the anticipated fund balance as of 6/30/2025 $203,864.33. I would entertain a motion to recommend as read.
So
I
moved.
will recommend as read.
I'll second.
Motion by Michael Kelly, second by Robert Kelly. All those in favor?
I thought this was kind of low.
That is 9. Opposed? 1. Motion passes by a vote of 9 to 1 to recommend. Article 9, to see if the Nottingham School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of up to $25,000 to be added to the Tuition Capital Reserve Fund previously established. This sum is to come from June 30th, 2025, unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1st, 2025. No additional amount to be raised by taxation. Current balance on 12/31/24 is 0. Majority vote required. Anticipated deposit of $20,000 from FY24 unreserved fund balance, making the anticipated balance as of 6/30/2025 $20,000. I would entertain a motion to approve as read.
Can I ask a question first?
This, yeah, that's a
Yeah,
question.
just a little
certainly.
more information about this, Danielle. What is the tuition capital reserve fund?
So that's for students moving into the district.
So like unanticipated moving?
Correct.
Okay.
Which we saw a drastic number this year.
Yeah, I think it went up
Yeah.
quite a bit, didn't it? Yeah.
But it's
Is that
always-
enough?
Yeah, but it's never been a problem in the past. I've been here 20 years. This is the first year for this fund. As you can see over the years, there's always unspent, hundreds of thousands of dollars unspent. I really don't see the purpose of it.
I think
though.
because they decreased it so much this year.
Decreased.
Because I think it's at 0 at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have it's the math of students graduating this year versus the number of moving up into the high school grade. So we're seeing a cost savings there. However, we have 20, adding 25, and in the budget's built in 40. So we still are trying to have a buffer for additional move-ins.
This basically covers one student.
Correct.
Should it be higher?
So we have 2 built into the budget.
Okay.
And
then
roughly
one
another
year.
2 are
You're
getting
asking
into
for a
this
third.
fund. Because there's 20 that's moving, that's anticipated to be moved in from unreserved.
Okay.
So it will be at 20, even though it's at 0 now,
It's
and
at
then
0
an
now. We'll be at
additional
20,
25.
and another 25.
So roughly 4 students would be covered in the expected budget. Motion is still on the table.
Oh, yeah, I'll make a motion to
Yep.
recommend this.
Motion by Michael Kelly. Second by Charlotte Fife. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Opposed? 1, 2, 3. Motion passes to recommend by a vote of 7 to 3. Article 10, to see if the Nottingham School District will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be added to the Grounds Improvement Capital Reserve Fund previously established. This sum is to come from June 30th, 2025 unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1st, 2025. No additional amount to be raised by taxation. Current balance on 12/31/24 is $105,065.84. Majority vote required. I would entertain a motion to approve as read.
Approve as read.
Motion by Sandra Jones, second by Jeff Morrison. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 in favor. All those opposed? 4. Motion to recommend passes by a vote of 6 to 4. Article 11, see if the Nottingham School District will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be added to the Textbook Capital Reserve Fund previously established. This sum is to come from the June 30th, 2025 unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1st, 2025. No additional amount to be raised by taxation. Current balance on 12/31/24 is $12,302.14. Majority vote required. Anticipated deposit of $25,000 from FY24 unreserved fund balance, making the anticipated balance, as of 6/30/2025, $37,302.14. I would entertain a motion to recommend as read. Motion by Sandra Jones,
Seconded.
second by Michael Kelly. All those in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. Motion passes to recommend by a vote of 6 to 4. With that closes out our warrant articles. While we don't have a formal agenda tonight, because I forgot to make one, we do have meeting minutes from January 2nd. I'm not sure if folks have had a chance to review those. But as this is the last time we meet this year, other than being present at the deliberative sessions, wondering if it makes sense to take care of this now while it's fresh in people's minds.
Otherwise, you have to do it in the spring.
Exactly, because we'll be doing these 2 last meetings in the spring anyway. I read through it briefly in about 10 minutes while I was sitting here, and I didn't see anything. I don't know if Dawn went through with her extremely fine-tooth comb.
We just got it tonight.
I know. I know. Would folks like a few minutes
Yeah.
to scroll through? Okay.
Yeah.
You guys sneaking out? Thanks for all your work. Really appreciate everything you do.
Appreciate it, everybody. Bill, I think your sore throat needs some ice cream when you get home, bud. Not even reading. What's the point of the joke? Not paying attention.
Yeah.
I'm reading. He's not paying attention. Who knows what's going on? I am. Man, it's not even that late.
Nearly there.
got a direct quote. I didn't catch that first.
What you do?
I do.
I got one too.
Oh, man. These are some detailed notes.
You're gonna be hard to live with now.
You read fast, huh? Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Thanks,
What's that?
cut our salary.
You're welcome.
You're doing it for the love of servicing your community, aren't you?
Really? You're right.
I am legally obligated to say you are right.
That was extremely sincere.
Especially when I look at the school board, you didn't cut them.
Hey, you were sitting right there, Steve.
Could have made the recommendation.
That was discussed, actually, it was brought up.
It was.
Across the board, Donna did.
Equity and inclusion is what was mentioned.
Yeah, didn't you get a raise though? You guys had the highest raise. You went from 0. 500% increase or
Crushed it.
There's also another set, because we haven't seen January 9th yet either, so we'll have to do that in the spring.
That one will be spring 9th and then these two meetings.
Yes.
Spring, wow. Will it ever come?
God.
Actually, if we play our cards right, it shouldn't be until the fall. We keep having spring meetings because we keep having to appoint somebody to the board.
Oh, yeah,
Because for
right.
3 years in a row, there's
Right.
been a vacant seat,
That's right,
and there isn't supposed to be.
that's right.
One hurt improvement acts with a fresh in your head.
It is always better. But, I mean, I don't know if I can call even January 2nd fresh in my head at this point. I don't, waiting any longer is not gonna get me better.
Posted for after the deliberative session?
We
Yes.
do, that's
We
right.
could do
We
them
could do it then, that's a good point.
Yeah. Oh.
We have a meeting posted for as need be,
Yeah.
but we could do it just to review minutes.
15 minutes to do another vote.
Be done with them. That's a good point.
But then you still have to meet to do that one.
Well, that one will.
I just,
But that would be an easy one to remember. Yes, we met, we made changes.
Yeah, only if we get less detailed meeting minutes. These things are crazy.
No, they're better than what we used to do.
All right. Excellent. I didn't note anything. Did anybody see? Oh.
Line 41.
Yep.
When we were discussing the newsletter, I suggested that an online version be considered.
Okay.
Do you recall that?
Oh, I do, definitely.
You would like to have that included, Sandra?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, okay. So,
I mean, we had more discussion about it, but I
Yeah.
think it's valid.
Would you
I'd
like
to have
it-
noted that I suggested that an online version be considered.
yep, would you like that after the first sentence or before? Where are you thinking on 41?
No, after that, Sandra Jones suggested that an online version be considered.
Okay, and then go to, she is struggling with a way to not do a warrant article every year?
Well, then Charlotte is suggesting.
Oh, maybe do Sandra in front of Jeff. on
Oh,
line
yeah,
42.
no, I see it. 42 is better. Yep, okay.
Because she is me.
Sandra
And I'm just struggling.
Jones
Charlotte is
I'll be
struggling.
remembered. The budget committee.
recommended,
35. Charlotte was struggling.
Sandra Jones recommended an online
I
version
think
be
that
considered.
makes a nice segue, because I'm debating about it, doing it a different way, and you're just wishing you didn't have to do it every year.
Well, wishing a lot of things.
Okay, anything else?
yeah, line 62, I had suggested that we take the Legacy Leader Luncheon Program out of the revolving fund. So I think I said it right after Tim
You said put it into the revolving fund.
put it into the revolving
Oh,
fund.
yeah.
Right, so,
Yep.
because it's one of the programs, so it just seemed
Mm-hmm.
odd for it to be there.
Okay, so probably, maybe then line 64, because I think the Tim DeBrio line, and then the assistant director goes along with that. So before chairman,
Yeah,
add
Karen Quinn made a recommendation to,
Karen.
Is it not now?
The separate line
it's a
item.
separate line item.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Which
A
doesn't make sense.
recommendation
That was a good catch.
to move and do you remember the exact title?
Legacy
No.
lunch?
I think it's like, yeah, I think it's
Isn't
legacy.
it legacy leaders, isn't it?
Legacy Leaders,
Legacy.
Leaders Program.
Yep.
Which is an awful.
I agree.
It really is.
I agree.
I get the postcard.
I don't know, I think it fits. Don't hit me, don't hit me, don't hit me.
I don't go.
Move the legacy.
Yeah, legacy.
Sound like we're dead already.
Maintain your
That joke was entirely to make fun of him, and he wasn't even paying attention. Where's the fun in this, Steve? Oh, you were just taking the higher road? Since when?
I always try to take the higher road.
You just can't always find it.
Land the
I
plane,
know,
buddy.
I know,
Land the
sorry,
plane.
this is getting real bad. It's
there.
9:30. Jesus,
Rest of the
yeah.
sentence.
Please do. Legacy Leaders
Mike,
Program
get him
into
under
the Rec
control.
Revolving Fund.
There you go.
Please do. Jesus. Rec Revolving Fund. Okay. Any other items? In that case, I would entertain a motion to add to approve the meeting minutes, draft meeting minutes from January 2nd, as written with the addition of Sandra Jones recommended an online version to be considered, in between the words year and Jeff in line 42. And Karen Quinn made a recommendation to move the Legacy Leaders Program into the Rec Revolving Fund between the words budget and chairman in line 64.
So moved.
Motion by Michael Kelly,
Second.
second by Donna Dennis. All those in favor?
Steve Walsh abstain.
Abstain too, I wasn't here.
Passes by a motion of 9-0 to 2. And with that,
Yeah.
I have,
Well, no,
What did
it's
I
not
say wrong?
9-0, because
9-0.
there's two abstentions.
oh, 8-0-2, yes, sorry, right. I defaulted back to 11. By a motion of 8-0 to 2, thank you for the clarification. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn, unless there's some other business.
I just have an ask for discussion for when we reconvene in the spring.
Yeah.
I think, you know, and I was on the budget committee like 13, 14 years ago. One of the things that I found difficult in going through this process is not having the recommendations of the select board and the school board on the information that comes to us for this night.
I was
And-
actually, sorry.
No, and I think that that's important information for us to have.
Agreed.
Because if and this has happened in the past where select board in particular, you know, it's been a split and warrant articles are still here. And I think we need that information so that we can understand why there's a split on the board. And so next year, I think we need to be more, and I'm not criticizing at all. 'cause
No.
You've done an amazing job.
Thank you, but no, actually, I was gonna say, I talked to Ellen about this actually today, and how it's difficult to try to review these things almost in real time. And we're gonna look at the schedule for next year. We actually, because we have one more meeting scheduled out that we're not gonna use, that is the snow day, we can
Yeah.
actually meet all of our requirements by still holding the public hearings, but then not actually do the deliberations until the following week, or something to that line. We're gonna look at the schedule and see how we can move things around, but still work within the, I think you can only be a maximum of 25 days away from the meetings, for the recommendations. But the recommendations and the agenda and everything, in theory, is supposed to be posted 7 days in advance. Now technically, it's only the agenda and the announcement, but we both said it makes sense if you can try to get things 7 days in advance. So we were looking at how we might be able to reconfigure the schedule.
Yep.
And I think we've sort of over-condensed ourselves from prior to being an SB2 town. We've carried that same timeline, where now we are actually a little different. So to your point, I think you're exactly right, and Ellen and I were talking about it. We see everything, it sort of feels like the end is just this crazy rush.
Right.
And is there some way to give a little wiggle room where we can see these things in advance? have at least a little bit of time to digest them, even if we don't have a public meeting to talk about them. So we're not actually all actively reading them while we vote on them for the first time.
And so to hold them to having the final wording and having their tally votes on it when it comes to us.
Yep, I agree. I think we did a lot better this year getting the budgets in advance, which was great. We got those much sooner, but then for some reason, the warrant articles all of a sudden still
Yeah.
came up on us all at the end.
Yeah.
And one of the big things about that is petition articles can still be given until Tuesday. So they actually, Ellen was sitting there waiting for petitions to come in until 4, then they have to go through, do the verification of the voters and the signatures and everything.
Actually putting them in
And
that
putting it in, and then
afternoon,
she
yeah.
didn't actually print those forms until, she said like 6 for
Yeah.
our 7 o'clock meeting. Like,
that's
obviously,
crazy.
that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So we gotta revisit the schedule, but I agree with you wholeheartedly.
And then one more, no.
Can I please entertain a motion to adjourn?
Someone.
Yay, got it.
I'll
Second by Karen Quinn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We did it, didn't open it after last time.
I-
Thank you, everybody.